Yep, okay.
You may want to move the document way out of the way first.
It's alright, it's at the back anyway.
Cool.
Yep.
Now, look at one, drag it a little bit closer, and then do a pinch again to kind of get it to expand.
Right, click on it, effectively. Pinch it. Yep.
And depending on what it is, sometimes you get some lines connecting it to other things.
Let's try a different one. Yeah, there you go.
There are more items than there should be, so it's a bit of an issue. Now, if you double tap on one, you can edit it, but not on the thing. If you look at the document,
yeah,
the edit information is there, which is really bad interface, but it's something we're having to deal with at the moment.
Yeah, it's sort of hidden behind the cloud of things at the moment.
Now, what I would like you to do, please, is stand up and walk amongst the information.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Can you walk all the way through it so you look at the back of it?
Yep, you can do that. Should I walk into the door?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels... So the effect of the actual map being physically present is extraordinary, right? So the feeling that it's physically present, the way in which these things look like they are printed plates floating in air that are as real as something that was printed and stuck on a wall or on a door. And I think that what it does, so when you normally have a big cloud of things like this and you bring up lots of connections between them, what you get is a confusing mess. But because you've got the extra dimensionality, you're actually much more able to understand the links and connections and see them. So you can kind of perceive things a lot easier.
How does it differ from sitting down and looking at it?
I think probably the main thing is that you naturally move around. So you're not artificially zooming in and out, right? You kind of, if I'm interested in this part of the map, I can come over here and I can look at this part of the map, and then everything else has sort of disappeared into my peripheral vision, and I've not had to worry about it.
That's a really important point, and you verbalized that better than I've ever thought.
So as a way of, it's a very natural way of doing spatial navigation of my viewpoint, if that makes sense.
Can you look at one really up close to see that the characters are actually all 3D?
Yes.
Wild, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is absolutely mad. Yeah, the detail of the actual thing. That's the other thing, is that something that I think looks quite plain when it's presented on a TV screen becomes much more aesthetically interesting and pleasing when it's presented in this way. Just the level of detail.
Did you notice the fonts?
Yep.
Rather than a sans serif, it makes it look more traditional and real, right? Rather than digital, or not?
No, like I said, it looks like it's printed out. It looks.
So we haven't done much with interactions yet. There's a lot of work left to be done. You should be able to add things. You should be able to do layouts, hide things.
So I think what makes it, it's actually, so it's the 3D font itself. That's true, but also the effect of the actual box, because it's a 3D with rounded corners and.
Would you
Yeah,
mind
really
putting
nice.
one of the notes on top of the table here?
Yep. Let me. What have we got here? Let's get as we may think. It's
Good one.
okay. So I put it down there. Yep.
Does it provide a shadow onto the table?
Let me have a look. I can't see one.
I'm not sure if that always happens.
I don't know whether it's a. Let's try the floor. But what's interesting is that it's very natural to actually use the environment as part of my spatial arrangement.
Yeah.
Um,
So you'll notice that all of them are facing towards you. So you can't curve them around to the side of the room, but that's just the way it is now. I agree with you, using the room itself, like you already have up here.
I think that works better though. I think if they, so the alternative is that they always orientate towards you, but then you wouldn't get the advantage of moving naturally through them. You wouldn't. I think it would possibly spoil that feeling of being there.
But you should probably be able to sort of snap them onto a wall if you want, right? For some items, maybe?
Yeah, so in fact what I'd like to do is I'm putting them down here on the table. Actually, how well have I put them? Are they floating? I'm kind of interested. Yeah, so this one, I've got 3 here in the table. One is slightly below the table, one is on the table, and one is slightly above the table. So I think snapping onto surfaces would make a lot of sense, right? And the other thing might be that if I pick one, so just to get a sense of the orientation, it's oriented this way, right? So they're all like that, okay? So I've got computer lib dream machines here. So if I put that over here on the wall, right, do that, now it's pointing out of the wall at me. Whereas I think if you had a surface detection and it went flat against the wall, yes, like a magnet against a fridge, right? So that's what I want, I think. Ooh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, good old death of the author. It's all the old classics in here, isn't it?
And it's all accidental, actually. It was supposed to be something else, and then we have a data thing. Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
There's a history of Rome to 565 AD. So as a middle-aged man, that makes me very happy.
Well, that was all.
That's my Rome for the day.
That was our trip in Rome, walking around the Colosseum, trying to get the histories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nice.
So questions then. I think I need to focus on augmenting a student, trying to put their knowledge in here to see what's missing and how it connects.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you think about that as a teacher, and also what might you want in here, if anything?
I'm not quite sure I understand your student question. So you want to think about what a student would want from this?
Well, so in Author for Mac, the idea is you define and define and define, and you can see relationships.
Yeah.
This is the same but bigger in many dimensions. So I think that's what it might help them. But the question is, if we now have the opportunity to put whatever data we want in and have whatever interactions we want, what would you want to be able to tell a student working on something? You know, put in a headset and do blah, blah.
So I think kind of what I want as a student versus what I would want. I mean, I think as a way of exploring a set of literature, it's really interesting. But at the moment, I mean, I've got the map at the back, but presumably that's what all of these are coming from, right? So it's like a root document. But if I select one of these, some of them, as you said, have those kind of relationships, but not all of them. And the if I select one, it gets slightly bigger, but there's nothing else on there, right? So what I probably want on there is I want a little summary. Could even just be the abstract of the paper. What's interesting is that because I'm naturally moving in, you could actually write that summary a lot smaller than the title, right? So you could actually just show it as a little piece. And then when I pull away, it's not distracting, it just sort of So that would be interesting. And then what I probably would want to do is I'd want to see the relationships between them. So for example, if one referenced another one, maybe you could show me the text or the paragraph of text that includes that reference as part of the link or the association. That would be quite interesting. And then I probably want a way of saying, actually, I really am interested in this. Open up the proper paper, and then it would show me the whole thing as a document, something like that.
That's really interesting. I'm so glad you're getting a kind of a virgin tour of this, even though you've been in here for this implementation, because
Yeah.
you said something that's obvious in retrospect. The text can be smaller because you move to it.
Yes.
So you can have a ton of stuff, but you don't always need to have it
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah. We used to design academic posters. And I used to do a course where, as part of the course, we got the students to create an academic poster. So I gave a lecture on how to do an academic poster. And I always used to say that the poster has to do 3 things. And the problem is it's very hard to have one that does all 3. So one is it has to attract you from across the room. So it has to have a big title, and it probably has to have an arresting image that drags you across the room, right? And when I stand back and I look at this, that's what these titles are doing effectively. And they're just text titles, right? But you could imagine at that level, you might put a diagram or some visualization from the paper as well at that level. And then when I select one of them, that's like me walking up. So the next thing that the poster has to do is, if someone is stood in front of your poster, it has to explain the work to them in a high level way. And that's what I want when I come up to these things, right? I want to see the abstract. I want to then have an option to read the paper probably. And then the last thing it does, and you've not really addressed this in this project, I know, is it has to act as a prompt if you are standing next to your own prompt poster and someone is talking to you. And you want to be able to say, well, we've done this here, and this is what we've done here, and this is what we're doing next, right? So it has to do all 3 of those things. And you can imagine in this environment, that would be, we haven't talked about communication, but perhaps a way of building up that kind of structure or communicating that with somebody else.
I'm so glad I recorded this, because what you basically just said now, this whole entire project needs to pivot to be spatial academic poster.
Well, the poster is a nice way of doing it. The paper is the thing that's behind it, right? It's exactly the same as an academic conference. So yes, and you're right, it hadn't occurred to me until I was looking at it like this. But that is effectively what you're doing here, right? You have a visual representation which is supposed to work with when you're looking at 20 or 30 of them, right? And it's supposed to enable you to draw to particular ones. Then when you're standing in front of it, it has to kind of expand and actually show you something which is interesting and allows you to interact and find out a bit more. And then behind that is the actual paper itself, which could appear separately or go somewhere else. And then I think there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff about how you lay out this. The other thing that strikes me is, although it's nice that I can move stuff around, right? At the moment, it feels like, because there's too much for me to organize this, right? If I was doing a really long session to try and do it, I probably could. But it does feel like we need different types of automatic organization and different types of structures.
In Author Mac, you can select by category and do auto layouts.
Yeah, okay.
So that's something we want here. But also this is intentionally overloaded.
Right.
To give a sense of going into it. Actually, would you mind please going top in the document itself, top to documents, and go out and see if there is a document called something like...
Yeah, I've got to actually find the documents bit, right? So I'm back in the file selector.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's synced properly, but there should be one of the newest ones called something like Future of Text 6 individual articles or something like that. Should be towards the top.
I think master map is at the top. A way of...
What's beneath it?
Got master map, journal, volume 6 as nodes.
Yes, volume 6 as nodes.
Volume 6 as nodes. Just click on it? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
And then go map, please.
There we go. Okay. Yeah.
I have not seen this in XR. I only did this as a test yesterday.
So it's much more structured. I don't have the 3D. It's appearing as a plane, but I've got lists down the side, lists of people, list of categories, and then papers in the middle.
So that's what's exciting. This was made on a Mac.
Yeah.
So, but once you move it here, it'll save on the Mac, but the Z dimension won't show on the Mac, but it'll be stored.
So I've just clicked on one of the papers.
Click on your paper.
And I've got, that looks like a little AI summary, is it? And then it links to the categories. So that's my paper. So what's that pulling up there? There's copies of that. I think there's multiple copies of my paper in here, so that's what the links are showing.
Okay, we still have some data cleaning to do.
It is amazing how that Z dimension makes a difference.
Yeah.
I've just started pulling out a few. You see, that feels like it's also an interesting interaction. So when we talk about spatial layout, we almost always talk about X, Y. So, put that stuff over there, put this stuff over here. But what I've done is I've just pulled a couple of things forward, and as a way of highlighting those things. So you can imagine that if I had a way of saying, right, show me all the papers that are doing X, and they don't have to move, they just need to come forward, right, as a way of highlighting them. I think that would be incredibly effective. Yeah. Same with recessing them. So perhaps we need to think a bit more about the Z dimension as a...
It's surprisingly hard to do, to get value from it, even though instinctively we feel there is.
Yeah, it gives a sense of priority more than type, for some reason. Yeah, it works.
And that's
really
the kind of thing we only realize with the headset on. It's very hard to realize that you're sitting down with no headset.
Yeah.
Can you select someone's name, please? See.
Yeah, I can select my... Oh, it's Deanie. Yeah, I've got Deanie.
Does it do a line to her paper?
Yes.
I'm thinking the line should be 50% transparent. What do you think?
Same to me.
Doesn't matter for you?
Possibly. I think you could play around. I think there's I think it's less the transparency than just a colour that differentiates them perhaps from the nameplates or the text boxes, whatever you want to call them.
So map on author, if you select something and hit spacebar, it hides everything else.
Yeah.
Maybe the equivalent here should be move what you've selected temporarily forward and fade everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, just to kind of bring stuff forward. Yeah.
So what happens if you kind of tap on not tap and drag, but tap on a person or a paper, because there should be summaries now on the papers.
Yeah, not all of them have actually, but one of the first one I did, there we go, there's one.
Because the type thing is a really important thing. I'm going to implement that as soon as I can.
Yeah. So the summary at the moment, it appears, so the summary text is all at the same level as the introduction. So I think that thing about saying the summary is actually something I can come forward and look at is fine. You might want to make things like the keywords possibly, or the topics might be something that I want to see. But yeah, the detail, like the actual text about who's the author, what the thing's about, that feels like something that would be okay to make a bit smaller, so I have to come up and actually look at it.
So imagine in this space right now, because of the papers, one of the names was Doug Engelbart.
Yeah.
He is obviously not an author of any of these papers.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be useful to have because I have many categories for these nodes, to have a category that is person, author? So it's explicitly clear when you say, show me all the authors rather than show me all the people?
It's hard to know, right? So I think that I tentatively would say yes, but it's difficult to know without actually having a use case for it, right?
So, well, the use case
I think,
is, sorry.
Yeah, so I think it would be useful. What I worry about, I think, would be that if you start putting too much stuff on here, it would be a little bit overwhelming, right? So, for example, you could come up with a load of stuff that individually is very effective. So these are all categorized in these topics, right? So why not color code them according to topic, right? And that might be quite interesting, right? The authors maybe could have an icon on them showing whether people could have an icon on whether they're showing they're authors or whether they're non-authors, right? The papers could have colored tags or could have something on them, something like that. There's a bunch of stuff you could do. The problem is if you switched all of that on, it would be really overwhelming and would be a bit of a chaotic mess, right? So it feels like what I want to do is I want to dynamically apply filters and I want to dynamically do stuff to this data set. I want to say things like, show me all the people who are authors, and then they come forward. I want to say things like, if I select a name, I think it makes sense to connect all those kind of papers. If I select, so if I select a paper, at the moment the links are all the references presumably in that paper, but there may well be other associations, and it would be quite interesting to say, what other papers talk about this, and kind of. So I think maybe a useful next step, just in terms of the interface, would be to start thinking about filters and the presentation of filtering. So how effective is it for colors? How effective is it for that Z-axis? What happens if I want to put multiple filters on at once, and all those kinds of things, right?
This is phenomenally cool, because when I said author, now this is a person who is an author, I meant for not visual showing, I meant for organizing and hiding.
Yeah.
However, with the filtering you're talking about, there's also a very cool filter that we haven't discussed, which is what you happen to be looking at.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a person's name,
yeah,
without you having to tap, there's nothing wrong with that popping up something to indicate author or not.
Yes.
Without even clicking on it. Right.
Yeah.
But that has to be subtle too, because as you said, and I agree, it can easily become overwhelming. So if your eye moves and things pop up all the time, that's just, breakfast cereal.
I think, as I said, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on. I feel like what I need is a toolbox of ways that I can automatically filter and organize this stuff. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm not actually that worried about it being used in a particular way. I almost feel like I want to be able to do it. So I want to be able to come in here, and I want to be able to say, this list of people, can you divide it into two, so I've got authors at the top and people at the bottom, and I'd like that to happen, right? I want to be able to say, show me all the papers here that are talking about artificial intelligence, and they come forward, or the system decides to present them in a different way. And if I don't like that, if it highlights them, I want to be able to say, can you bring them forward a bit? And it will do that, right? So these are all kind of operations that the system knows what to do, and then it will be able to apply them dynamically to the data in ways that I want, right?
Yeah, and there are, one of the things I talk to Fabian about a lot is the scaffolding, and one of the scaffolds is the original plane.
Yeah.
So if you pull things forward, do things, it would probably be useful to say put back. And
Yes,
all it does
yeah.
is the Z dimension is zeroed, yeah. But also when you say, I would like to say to the system, of course, sometimes you would use speech, but it could also be through gestures and selections. So for instance, you'd probably, like we have on the Mac, we probably have select all people, organize alphabetically.
Yeah. This and some concept of the spatial layout stuff. So I just said, for example, there's a list of authors here, right? But there isn't a list of authors here, right? There's an arrangement of authors in the list. So if you go back to the old spatial hypertext thing, the idea that the system should recognize that is a list, And when I'm looking at a name in that list, I'm selecting the name, but I'm also selecting the list. So if I talk about the name, it should know what I mean. If I talk about the list, it should know what I mean.
Yeah, similar.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can imagine the same with sets. So if I said to the system something like, show me all the papers which are connected with artificial intelligence, and they come forward, and I say, right, well, let's put them over here, right? Or I might want to be able to grab them as a group. Perhaps there's this thing where I can grab all of them as a group, and I can grab them and literally move them, and they go there, right? And like we said, some of the kind of key interactions, like placing on a wall, placing on a surface, not so they snap flat against a wall,
Right.
and so that they rest naturally on a surface as opposed to like flat. These kinds of things would be quite useful, because you can effectively imagine being in a space and saying, right, we'll do that, put those over there, do those over here, and then I want to go and have a look in this more detail. And as a way of exploring a group of papers, I think that would be very, very effective.
What about pushing something past the plane of origin to make them invisible?
To de-emphasize them, you mean?
Yeah, to make them, I'm not interested in this paper, and then be able to
push
bring them
that back
later.
push that back. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of naturally do that to a certain extent, although, but yeah, you're using that idea of the Z dimension being relevance or importance.
One of our ideas for doing the books is that each book, the articles would be individual nodes, but they would be plain back in time.
Yeah.
So you should be able to organize based on time on X, Y, Z dimension.
Yeah, I think you said something else. You said something important there, which you said the word plane, right? Because as I bring these things forward, it's a lovely effect, right? But it again becomes quite chaotic. Whereas it's very obvious when things are in the same Z plane, right? I think particularly if there's a uniform distance between those. So thinking about layers,
Snapping
to layers, that might be an effective way of doing it.
Yep.
As well. Yeah.
So
and there's lots of overlapping ideas, like the idea of having a list in the Z plane versus the Y plane or the X plane. Columns and rows and whatever the hell that is. We don't talk about it. Yeah.
So obviously you need to be, one of the points Dini really made me understand is the importance of annotation.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to annotate what you see, both in terms of some sort of a tag, full text, location, and so on.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is here, are we looking at two different things that can overlap? One, somebody going to a conference and reading a stack of papers in proceedings.
Yeah.
Two, somebody doing a academic poster with a lot of citations in it. Because an academic poster could be the same thing, except it has their work is considered annotations.
Yeah. I think the problem with the annotations is that people are going to use them very differently, right?
I mean annotation only as not something that was in an original academic paper, but something that the user put on it.
Sure, but depending, your annotations are going to be. People use annotations very, very differently.
Yeah.
So some people are extensive annotators, and when they're reading a paper, they will go in and they will highlight stuff and make notes and tag the paper and do all that kind of stuff. I don't do that. I don't make annotations. So the way I organize through structures. So I organize by, creating relationships, putting things in sets, creating, saying, oh, there's a collection of things here. These papers are all about this.
Well, just saying that.
Look
Look at your wall. That's exactly what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little bit chaotic, to be honest. But yes, it's that kind of thing, right?
That's a good one.
So absolutely. Yeah.
Because
So you kind of. So for me, the level of annotation I would like, I'd be much more interested in making sure that when I return to this space, it was as I said it. And if I have ways of automatically laying stuff out and changing the way things are, that I also have ways of protecting bits, right? and kind of saying, don't mess with this.
Yeah, so locking is a useful thing.
Yeah.
But spatial annotation is what you're talking about, and that is very important.
Yeah. Whereas I think perhaps Dini is well, I don't know, but my guess is that if she's saying annotation is very important to her, maybe that's because she annotates in a richer way than I do.
But she's also very interested in spatial annotation, so that overlaps really well. But also, one thing that I've come to feel, I'm wondering if you have the same feeling, is that clustering is more useful than having lines between things.
Yes.
It's a surprising thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and structuring. So like I said, you have lists and sets and groups. But then that's what we get from the original spatial hypertext systems, right?
Yes. Any final words? You've been very kind, half an hour.
No, it's really interesting. It's kind of interesting to see it, and it kind of makes you think about the affordance of the space in a completely different way. Yeah, again, it makes me think about what I want is a very adaptive, malleable space, I think.
Where you can impose structure at will.
Where I can basically impose that structure, and I can go in and look at further details, and I can, go further down if I need to. But actually, at this level, as you said, the stuff that would be in a poster, right? The key highlights, the abstract key images from the paper. That's probably what I want at this level, rather than the papers themselves. Because I'm not really going to be doing any deep reading in this interface. I might be checking something, right? So I might go, okay, I wonder if that's what they mean by this term, and I'll have a look in the paper, and I'll go through the paper, and that's what they mean, and I'll close it.
Actually, make your hand do this, look at it and tap to go out of this.
Yep.
And go into Reader just for a quick second.
Yep, okay. So, am I in Reader already? Have I loaded up the document?
You were in Author, so go into Reader.
Documents.
No, you need to go on the desktop as it were, so do that hand thing again.
Oh, okay, and come out completely. Go into Reader, okay?
Yep.
So
Open.
I've got file select again.
Just open almost anything.
So, Engelbart's augmenting human set paper. Yep, a conceptual framework, there we go.
So you can have many different layouts, as in 2-page, mini-page, whatever.
Yep. Single page, 2-page, all horizontal. Nice. Yeah.
So here's the annoying, shocking thing. Apart from having this massive thing on your head, reading in this environment is really nice. Just because it's so clear and you make it whatever size you want without cluttering.
Yeah. It is nice, yeah. I mean, bear in mind that I'm normally a glasses wearer, so it's slightly blurry to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works very well. But again, I kind of feel like what I want to do, so I'm reading the paper, and I've got to figure 1, right? The 2 sides of the H lam.
Yeah.
My eyesight T system, right? So it's a diagram. I want to be able to snap it. I want the diagram over here. I want to say, right, take that, pop it over here as a separate window.
Very important.
And then I can reference it. It's just there when I'm reading the rest of the paper.
Yep.
So again, it's this idea of dissolving the frame and saying, actually, I want to be able to, as I'm reading, take things out and dynamically put them around. Right.
That is very important. And an additional thing, well, 2 additional. One is, in Reader for Mac, you can double click on a citation and it'll show you the whole thing in a pop-up, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work here yet, but it should be able to do that and tear it off to the side.
Yeah, also that would be very good.
And furthermore, you should be able to, our brackets that are sharp, right? So instead of the angle brackets we have for numbers,
yeah.
Imagine this kind of a bracket with a number, referring to layouts.
Okay.
So if you open that, it refers to a appendix at the back with X, Y, Z, and then it'll show you whatever of the document and whatever spatial layout you want.
So
it doesn't exist. Just a concept.
Yeah.
So that means that you could, while you're reading the paper, it could say, and show all the references in a timeline. It could do show all
Yeah.
pictures up on the side.
Yeah. I mean, I think that those are the kind of things I want to have. And the same with things like AI summaries, right? So I want to be able to dynamically generate particular summaries. Just the interaction with the paper is interesting. I'm kind of playing around with the single page, 2-page bit. What's going on here? There we are. So they're all horizontal. At the risk of giving myself making myself feel like I'm going to throw up, I guess, if I'm too close. That feels much more natural. The kind of there's slightly, I think the 2-page needs some kind of animation, kind of lose track of where you are.
I think there's some good points also to do with the margins.
Yeah.
There's too much margin in the middle between the 2 pages. It's like a waste of space because you obviously don't have the crack or the fold of the printed book.
No. There's something about, so presumably, so I can move this window. I'll presumably make it bigger. Oh, that's interesting. So it's kind of scales. So that's immediately a completely different way of interacting with it, isn't it? So what I've done now is it was like having an A0 poster, right, showing roughly 2 pages, and now what I have is a banner that looks more like a kind of, I don't know, Bayer tapestry type thing, and it's showing about 8 pages, and I can still read it. But that gives me a kind of very different view of the paper. And here again, what I want to be able to do is I always want to be able to look at the paper from this zoomed out thing, and then look at a page and select it and have the page jump forward as a piece that I can read, or not even a page. Maybe it ought to be elements. Maybe it ought to be, if I'm looking at a section, it brings the section forward. If I'm looking at a paragraph, it brings the paragraph forward. If I'm looking at a figure, it brings the figure forward. That kind of thing.
And of course, if you're looking at a 2-dimensional image of a 3-dimensional object, it should bring the full object forward.
Yeah. And then if we go, I forgot how big this was.
It's a long paper.
It is a long paper. Yeah. And then we've got the references at the end. Yeah, feels like I definitely should be able to interact with them more. It's an interesting question about whether I should be able to tangibly interact with it or not.
It is very different.
That feels like it would be a completely different thing, but it does, that works. So, I'm trying to use it like a tablet to zoom in, so it won't do that. But I don't have to pinch. I can pinch from a distance and scroll, or I can go up and actually swipe the pages and scroll, both of which feel very natural. Yeah, very good.
Final thoughts?
So what strikes me is the sheer amount we don't know about interacting in these spaces, and all of these different questions about reading and interacting with text in these environments, and how completely different it is, because your viewpoint is so mobile, because the interaction space is so big, and because you've got this Z dimension. And the sort of the possibility of it is quite extraordinary. Yeah, good. Thank you for showing it to me.
Thank you for that amazing walkthrough. I'm very grateful I recorded it.
Yeah, nice.
You may now leave the virtual.
Right.
See if the world looks different. You don't need to do anything. Just take
it on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hello, Dave.
Hello. Yeah, very good.